Please put all phones and electronics on silent.
Please silence your electronic devices as the ceremony will begin in 5 minutes.
All right, Kevin. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your weekend to come be on the podcast. Obviously, we've worked together for about the past year and a half here in San Antonio at Corman A School. Gotten to know you. I know you have a great story to be told. Served 20 plus years in the Navy, getting ready to retire here. Well-deserved retirement, and just something I want to document. So I kind of mentioned at work the other day, something that your kids can listen to in 15, 20 years and then hear everything their pops has to say about his career. So something we do here on the podcast, I'll obviously be, it's called the Mid-Watch, right? Named after the mid-watch that we may stand on ships where we usually just bullshit the entire watch because nothing else is going on.
Facts.
But obviously before you turn over a watch, you should know your 11 general orders. But here on the Mid-Watch podcast, we have the 11 general questions. All right? It's kind of a rapid fire. Just first thing comes to your mind, go ahead and answer. All right?
All right.
You ready?
Do it. Yep.
All right. First one, favorite superhero.
Favorite superhero. Ooh. Can I say Rocky?
That works.
I
I appreciate that as an Italian.
I love Rocky 4. That was my favorite movie growing up. I love Rocky.
All right.
Love his fighting spirit, and he just never quit. So that's why I like it. He's not a superhero, but he's my superhero.
I like it.
And my dad.
Okay. That's a good one. Good one. Who would win in a cage fight, Chuck Norris or Bruce Lee?
Bruce, come on. Bruce.
Like water. If you could raise one person from the dead and have them walk in the modern world, who would it be?
I was going to say Bruce because we just talked about Bruce. Because I think he would just change the game for MMA and the whole sports fighting, everything. For mixed martial arts. He was so far ahead of his time. And it got cut short, but I still feel like he was a pioneer of everything. Philosophy and just just way of he was doing stuff that they're doing now,
right?
And that was 30 years ago,
right? Pioneer of his time.
Yeah, pioneer of his time.
All right. What was your first car ever?
Ooh, first car ever, Toyota Camry, 1988.
What color was it?
It was dark gray.
All right. If you could have dinner with one person, who would it be?
My wife.
All right. If you could be any movie character in real life, who would it be?
Any movie character? Probably The Rock. He's the man. His persona, he's just outgoing and he's chiseled. Everybody wants to be The Rock, man.
All right.
Yeah, for sure.
What's your favorite chick flick?
Ooh. Lake House.
All right.
That's with Keanu and Sandra. This is my favorite actors when it comes to love movies and stuff. For sure.
If you could only pick one, honor, courage, or commitment?
Courage.
All right. If all jobs paid the same, what would you do?
That's easy. DJ.
All right. If you were in the airport and an airline would give you one free ticket, where would you choose to go?
Thailand.
All
or
right.
Laos. Thailand or Laos, yeah.
All right. And the last question, one item on your bucket list.
Item on my bucket list, man. Wow. I don't know. I guess I've seen everything. Probably Maldives.
Okay.
I'd probably take a vacation there.
All right. So that concludes that segment of the 11 general questions. Thank you for that. The idea behind that is just kind of get the brain flowing. Get into the conversation portion of the podcast. And as we spoke about prior, and I like to reiterate for the guests, is the goal of this is for me to talk as least as possible, right? This is a platform for you to tell your story, your career, right? Back in the day, we used to have to wait for the Discovery Channel or History Channel to document, right, a story. Now with the grace of technology, we can do it and a spare bedroom, right? Put it
Yes.
on the internet, and it's there forever. um, so the point of this, right, is just take advantage of that and do that for as many people as I can. So start every podcast out, right, is we are senior in high school. I'm your classmate sitting next to you in math class. Who are you?
Who am I? Man, looking back on myself, uninformed, I would say, like closed-minded. There's so much that I didn't know that I know now just from being in the Navy and meeting and experiencing and going places that, people only dream of. I think it's like if I were to tell myself like, hey man, you got a lot to learn, young buck. Like you're going to see the world and it's going to open your eyes to a lot of stuff.
Did you play any kind of sports or anything in high school? Any clubs, chess club,
Yeah.
bowling club, anything like that?
No, I skateboarded, man.
Oh, okay.
I was a skateboarder. We, there wasn't too much to do around there. Like,
Where's there?
Upstate New York, Rochester, New York. Well, Penfield, New York proper. Just a small suburb right outside of Rochester. The Bills training camp is like in Pittsford, which is about 10 minutes from the house. Shout out Buffalo Bills, Bills Mafia. Had to put that in there. But growing up there, you didn't really have a lot of stuff to do, so you had to get creative, right? And that's when I started really kind of opening my eyes up to different things. Like skateboarding was like, I was a skateboarder, I played in a punk band, and I DJ'd. So it was like, you have like, it's just whatever I wanted to do, right? So, I had my Mark II Technics turntables with a Vestax mixer. And I just always thought about music, and I was, at some point I knew at that moment I wasn't ready for school, and I had other dreams and ambitions, but, talking with my uncle, Uncle Me, we call him, he's out in Nashville now, Murfreesboro. He really kind of just opened my eyes up to, what the Navy can do for you and, your family. Like I was already thinking about, like, I wanted to have a family. I wanted to have, children. And, as soon as I got in, because like you just, what the priorities are. Mm-hmm. Like you grow up and you don't know what you don't know. Right. So, but then like, all of a sudden you feel certain things when you're exposed to like new environments. And man, I was homesick for a while, and I was like, I want to have my own family. I want to be successful. Like all those different things comes into play. But I think, talking to if I were to say, hey, you need to pick something and stick with it, because I was just doing everything.
Right.
And I really think that once I found that, you kind of knew which direction you wanted to go into.
Well, so, you're still obviously DJing now.
Yeah.
What led you to your passion for music? Did family get you into it? Church choir growing up? Like what, or you just kind of gravitated to it?
Nah, man, like, we had this one store in Rochester called House Guitars, and I play guitar too. And I listened to Metallica and Nirvana. Those were like the big bands back then that like, oh my God, you could play. And then like the talent show, and it's like, oh, you can go on stage if you can perform. We had a group called Mad Hatter, and we performed No Doubt. I think it was, what's that song with Gwen Stefani?
The one that like made No Doubt big.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I remember the CD. It was an orange CD, and it's a No Doubt in blue writing on it.
Well, anyways, yeah.
I can't think of the name.
Yeah,
of that song.
I can't think of the name. I should probably know this. We'll edit that out. But it was eye-opening for me. It was like, oh wow, you could draw a crowd, you can entertain people, and you can make people happy. And I thought that was the most coolest thing. I wasn't always about the spotlight and stuff. I just kind of want to be behind the scenes. That's kind of how I am now,
Right.
like with music production. Working with two different artists, and I like to be behind the scenes and watch them kind of blossom. That's what makes me happy. It's kind of like the Navy too. Like I like sitting back and mentoring and kind of coaching up folks to see for them to reach their level, their expectations, right? It's not my dream, it's your dream, and I'm gonna help you pursue that dream, man. Like that was a promise to myself. Like as you go towards the end of your career, I think you kind of realize the impact that previous leaders have had on you, and you want to pass that along. But I also think that it's your obligation. Help as many people as you can. I told myself that. Help as many people as you can before you get out. Mm-hmm. And that's what I plan on doing. That's what I still do.
All right. Well, before we get to the point of you getting out, let's revert back to the beginning. So, you graduated high school. If you don't mind me asking, what year was that?
Oh, man, 2001.
Okay, 2001.
That's when the real millennium started. For all you folks out there that say 2000 is when it started, 2001.
So you graduated high school in 2001. Was there any kind of gap there? What led you, to walk into the recruiter's office? Was it, right when you graduated? Did you take like a year or two yourself? What?
No, I was what they call like a 17S or 18S, right? Like you do that last year. That senior year, I was going through DEP, and I'd already committed, and just kind of, going to DEP meetings and kind of preparing myself mentally to go.
So you're in the delayed entry program as you're a senior?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just kind of acclimation. They make you do certain things, drill, teach it, the basic Navy stuff that you'll need to know before you hit boot camp. So, yeah, that's what I did. Just, college looked great. A lot of my friends went to college and big universities and Ivy League schools and stuff, and I was just like this kid's wanting to join the military.
What led you to the Navy?
My uncle, for sure. Like he had a great experience, and he's retired SKCS.
It's a predecessor to like the LSs, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah. So, I saw what it did for him and discipline and just overall outcomes. So I thought that was very admirable, and it's like I want to do the same thing and leave a legacy, right? Because I was the first one to join out of the family, immediate family, right? My brother's a successful mold maker with Thermo Fisher Scientific. My younger brother works for Department of Education. So I mean, we all had our own path. We all like growing up. It's crazy because you think about it. It's like we all did different things because you're all different people, right? Like
right.
When your kids like grow older, like they will find their way. Like as long as they're successful at it, I'm not going to stop them from pursuing what they want to pursue.
So if I'm guessing the time frame here, right? So you said you graduated high school in 2001. Mm-hmm. So you went to boot camp that summer, right? So we're still pre 2000,
yes.
Pre 9/11.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, 'cause I love touching on that time frame when I have more senior sailors on the podcast. But kind of what was that first initial shock getting off of the bus there in Great Lakes? Your first initial thoughts of did you have the typical what the hell am I getting myself into?
Yeah, because like back in the day, I think YouTube just I don't know if it was even popular or even started. Like it's just a different generation, so you didn't have like the cheat codes, right? You didn't have the pro tips from the YouTube channels. Hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like you had the DEP meetings, and then you were off, right? You stepped in Great Lakes, and that was it. Yeah, I mean, like any other recruit that goes through recruit training, like they're all kind of in awe, shock and awe, right? Because it's like, who are these people yelling at me? Where do I gotta go? What do I gotta do? But there was a purpose behind it, right?
Right.
And I really try to instill that team concept, the learning to lean on one another, depend on one another, and I think that still continues throughout, your military career and then after your military career too. So,
do you have any significant stories or funny stories or highlights that you remember from boot camp?
Is this a PG?
No. It's going on the internet.
Okay. So
Whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. I mean, this is. I still laugh at this, man. And hey, this doesn't reflect. This is my own personal experience, so it's got a little uncensored here, but it's a cool story. So I forgot what we were doing, but I think we just come back from training, right? You know, before they used to march us everywhere, and then we'd have some dwell time in the barracks and stuff, and we had these duty belts, and you know, you had the rain jacket. It was all folded up, nice, tucked in. It was like, you know, you had your rain jacket, your canteens, and we were wearing dungarees at the time, and we'd all gotten into the compartment. People were like, you know, sleeping on their rain jackets, right? It's all nice. It's like the perfect pillow because it's all like nice, you know, doesn't have the liner in there, but it's like a thing that you put your head on when you don't want to destroy your rack.
Right.
So we're in there, and you know, you always have to call attention on deck when the RDC comes in, recruit division commander, and I think his name was Bump, huge. We had Bump and Bup. Crazy.
That was
right?
a real name?
The
Like
Bump
nicknames?
and Bup. Like, seriously, like, country fed, big dude. And, man, nobody liked him, man. And, because he'd always just clown on people. And he's napping, like, stone cold napping. Well, and I'm laughing because it's funny. So, you ever heard this thing called impossible sit-up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, he's like dead knocked out. Bup like pulls down his pants, right, and is like hovering in front of as Bump is like dead knocked out, and and then these guys are all looking at each other, saying, "Attention on deck." So this dude, as soon as this dude yells "attention on deck," his face just goes right into the brown eye. Right into the brown eye. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing. And he like, you know, he did that deal. And Bum was like, you mom. I swear he wanted to kill everybody.
That's great. The things like that, I think, are why it's so hard for us to assimilate the civilian life.
Yeah. That's the uncensored edition.
That's great. I love it. I love stuff like that. That's, you know, that's the only stuff you hear usually from the military. Maybe some locker room talk on sports teams, but usually I don't like kind of happens.
Oh yeah, that was kind of I was unexpected. That was like my first exposure to like military humor.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Get creative.
So, one question actually I forgot to ask. You came in as a corpsman, right? You didn't go like undez, strike corpsman, or
Yeah, so my original contract was undesignated fireman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, I want to be a corpsman, and you know, it just wasn't open at the time with a classifier, so I ended up getting corpsman, which is a blessing, thank God.
So was it how it is now where you had to like go to a ship right to boot camp and then strike corpsman, or?
Well, this is before I shipped out.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't get a job until before I shipped.
Okay.
So it was written in the contract. I wanted the contract.
So when you were in boot camp, you knew you were going to be a corpsman?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that so? You said you wanted it, right? So
Yeah.
where did that interest of medicine come from, or did?
Yes. So from my uncle too. He was an ultrasound tech. Diagnostic medical sonography is what he majored in. He graduated from RIT.
Okay.
And he was like, "Hey, go corpsman." I was like, "Okay," you know, because my mentor, and I ended up choosing corpsman, and you know, the rest is history, man. Like that was the rate.
So you said you went in July boot camp.
July 5th.
Okay.
Like
so
I just left New York. Left New York July 4th, right? And then went to Buffalo MEPS and then shipped out from there.
So boot camp 2 months long. So 9/11 is days after graduation, days before graduation.
I was already in Corps school watching. We watched 9/11 happen on the large big screen.
So right, going. I mean, that's kind of like a perfect kind of environment that I think could, we could spark good conversation. Being 17-year-old, 18-year-old, Kevin, just fresh out of boot camp, that shock of not being home anymore, right? Making it through that. Now you're in this new environment of A school, which has its own set of shocks, I'm assuming. And then boom, now you're watching 9/11, right? I was 12 when 9/11 happened, and I knew the world was changing. Being a 17, 18-year-old, obviously you definitely knew as well. What was going through your head there? Especially knowing the rate that you're about to enter into, very well is going to put you.
Crazy thing is, I thought I was going to be in a hospital the whole time, right? Because hospital corpsman, you're like, oh, I'm just going to be in a hospital. I'll work there, some like medical technician job, whatever. So that happened, and I distinctly remember they changed the base threat conditions.
Right.
The barriers went up, certain things started happening, and then folks that were originally just going to go to their duty stations ended up getting redirected to field medical service school, or field medical training battalion is what they call it now, east or west, whatever. Pick your flavor.
And just to interject real fast, just so people who are listening who may not know exactly, that's the school that corpsmen have to go to before they go serve with the Marines. It's essentially like a
indoctrination,
expedited Marine boot camp, if you will, to introduce you to that lifestyle.
Absolutely. Assimilation into Marine Corps life and operations, essentially, what your role on the battlefield is. A lot of it's understanding the Marine Corps before you serve with them.
Right.
For sure. So I got redirected to field medical service school. And I was like, what is that? It's like, we serve with the Marine Corps? Like, I didn't even know that. I was so oblivious to stuff because we didn't have.
Right.
Didn't know.
I guess at that point, I mean, we had a decade of peace, right? I mean, it's common knowledge for people my age because we grew up in the war. Like, we knew Corps and, you know what I mean? But I guess, kind of going back to that time, Desert Storm in the 90s was probably the last, and that was what, like a month? So.
Yeah, I mean, the war itself, we were in a challenging time. I think our whole way of thinking changed. How we viewed certain things, what was important, what the priorities were, changed.
So I had a fellow HM1 on probably a year or so ago. He was kind of similar time frame as you. He was actually in the initial push out of Kuwait into Iraq when we did that. And he was talking about what's it called again? What was it called before FMTB? Field Medical Service School.
FMSS.
He said he felt like he was warped back into like MASH. Would you say similar?
I was there for the initial push as well. I had gotten orders to Naval Hospital 29 Palms, and then all the infantry units had gotten deployed for the start of OAF. And I got augmented to 3rd Battalion 1st Marines, Thundering 3rd out in Camp Pendleton. And yeah, it was a quick, we were 2 weeks and we're already in, the capital of Iraq. Yeah.
Would you say it's a fair assessment to like what that school was like though? Like being warped back to MASH?
Yeah. Just sorry, man. Just reverting back to your question. We were wearing tri-colored analog digital camouflage utilities. It was a warp back in a time because, medicine at that point really was still MASH medicine. It wasn't, we didn't have the high speed, low drag stuff that we have now, just based off our experiences and the battlefield outcomes for patients.
Right.
So that, the technology wasn't there. So Humvee medicine is what you call it. Medicine out of your backpack, out of your med bag.
Yeah, we definitely. Unfortunately, the military is usually reactive, not proactive.
Right.
So, a lot of that stuff didn't come until after the fact, right? Unfortunately. But I always found that fascinating that,
I should have brought the picture. Actually, my good friend Jen Jevney, shout out Jen Jevney, retired senior chief. She sent me our field medical service school picture.
was that,
So
didn't you posted that not too long ago? Was that the picture you posted?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. So yeah, we're together. I think we're out in the field and it was cold. I had a beanie on and I didn't have a care in the world. Like it was just so fun to me, right? Those were good times. I mean, Anna Gouge, Chief Anna Gouge, we were in the same class.
Oh, okay.
As well as RJ, who's our CMC. We were in the same field medical service school class. So a lot of history there. Jang, Jang, H1 Jang. We were Giwon. We were in the same class. Wow. Yeah.
Holy moly. Small Navy.
Small Navy, yeah.
Okay, so how about kind of revert back to that, all right? So you're in school, right? 9/11 happens, as you're going through core school, right now you get redirected, you go to field service school. I don't think I said that right.
Field medical service
Field
school.
medical service school. So what's your thought process there? And do you feel like you were prepared well by your instructors? Because I'm sure the instructors really didn't know, right? It's not like, again, my generation, our instructors were people who were, a few combat deployments under their belt, kind of knew what was going on. I would assume that initial set of instructors, right? The Vietnam people are well gone, obviously, right? So
right.
There's a gap in not say knowledge, but a gap in experience, if you will.
There's some Desert Storm veterans that were instructors that taught us. Sergeant Stout, we had H1 Banks. I still keep in touch with, and then we had I think he was H1 Frank Dominguez. He's a retired CMC now. But the crazy thing is that he was my CMC on the later half of my career when I was in Afghanistan, and he was a regional Southwest RC regional commander for Southwest in Afghanistan. Okay. So it's pretty cool to see. But I mean, like they had experiences like that we could draw from, and then they could, there was a strong emphasis on just tactics and how we'd approach medicine at the time. Yeah, for sure.
And what was, like I said, like your mental state? Like, were you maybe not scared, but worried? Like, were you like what? Right? Because there's so much stuff going on at that point. The world is literally changing, right? So like, what was going through your head, like when you're laying down in bed at night, right?
Man, I gotta know this. I gotta know my job. I gotta know how to help people. Put beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. If you guys are familiar with that,
No.
Right? That's what keeps wars going. And if you can keep a Marine alive, that's another weapon on the battlefield for sure.
Right.
And I think, for us, it was just keeping them stable, keeping them healthy, so they can put lead down range. Yeah.
All right. So you were the mental fortitude to kind of, hey, this is what I got to do, and it's time to go, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's time to go.
So you said your first command out of school was at 29 Palms, the hospital?
Yeah, special place, man. Love 29 Palms. I did, 2 tours there. Very special place, man. Just a lot of great people that came out of there, a lot of great leaders that I still respect and I still talk to today. Learned a lot from that place.
So how much time was in between, because you said you got deployed out of there as well, right?
Yes.
So how much time was between you checking in? Was it kind of like a reps and sets thing at the hospital before you deployed, or what was like the structure there at your first command?
Yeah, so I first checked in and worked at Military Sick Hall as like a regular clinic. You saw students from MCS, which is their comms and electronics school for the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And just kind of, it was more outpatient care than like emergency medicine. And then I got a chance to work with EOD, the base EOD team. We'd do range sweeps and stuff. Yeah, it was a good time. I mean, just mental reps, just kind of replaying stuff in your head, make sure you're doing things right, interventions and those things, so you don't mess it up.
So did you know like a deployment was coming, or was it kind of, hey, Kevin, you're going kind of thing? Pack your bags.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Captain Solomon, retired Nurse Corps, she's my CO at the time. She was like, you're going to go. And the command was so supportive. I mean, I distinctly remember we had colors, we had morning colors, and everybody, it wasn't just me. It was like multiple folks that got augmented to different Marine units because there just wasn't enough corpsmen to go around.
Right.
So they would just draw them from the hospitals. And we had sat there in morning colors, and I remember Chief D-Zone, great dude, Filipino guy, and he had all the chiefs behind him. He led the chiefs in the formation, which I thought was the most coolest thing. And then after we did colors, and then after that he gave us a salute.
Oh, very cool.
Which is, I was like, oh, this is real, for sure. Like, he mentioned, like, for the folks that are deployed, we salute you. And I thought that was the most coolest thing. And I was like, yeah, this is real. We're gonna go do something.
What was that conversation like when you called home? Say, hey, I'm going.
Yeah, my mom, she was worried, like any good parent would be. My brother too. He couldn't, he didn't tell me till afterwards, but he had trouble sleeping and just thinking about me like every good family member should.
What's the ages there? She says you had two. Are you like the baby, middle?
I'm the middle child.
Middle? Okay.
Yeah. I'm the Marcia. The Marcia. Yeah, I was complaining. I wasn't the oldest, so I wasn't, the wisest. And
right.
then I wasn't the youngest, spoiled. And, I was in the middle somewhere.
That's me.
Yeah. Middle So wanted to do my own thing, and it is what it is. But I mean, it was a challenging time for sure. Like, yeah, my mom is like my cornerstone. My dad gave me this amulet that I carried with me during OF1. He's like, hey, this is gonna protect you, and just keep it with you.
So, what year are we in now? Still in 01 or?
This is like going towards 03.
Okay.
Like during the initial push, yeah.
Okay. So, where was your first deployment to? Iraq?
Iraq, yeah.
Okay. So what was that, did you do like the traditional fly to Germany, fly there? Like what was that like? Day of deployment?
Yeah, it was, I think we flew into Frankfurt, and then we staged in Kuwait. We're in Tent City is what they call it. All the units were just gathered around, and just a bunch of huge tents with all these infantry units getting ready to go. We had Army. I think I saw some British soldiers there. Just multiple. It was a multinational thing.
Did you come across any people that had right? Because at this point, Afghanistan's been going on for a little over a year, probably, right?
Yeah.
Anyone in your unit that had already done a tour, or a lot of just
no, they're all
first timers, if you will.
First timers.
Okay.
Some people will. I mean, you got to understand that some folks that were supposed to get out were stop lost, so they weren't able to get out. Particularly the Marines. So I mean, we're all experienced. It was all new. Like we didn't have maybe some of the senior enlisted leadership maybe had some experience, but for the most part, we're this is it.
And kind of going back to your your head while you're lying in your rack, right?
Yeah.
When you're back in school, this is what I got to do, I'm ready to go. You still have that similar mentality while you're over there, or is it? I mean,
oh, absolutely, it was heightened, for sure. Like this is where we were, it's just crazy because I look back at it now and I'm like, we started doing training in 7 tons with sandbags on the side, and that was our armor. Like you look at it, and then we switched to tracked vehicles, the AEVs, and then we're mechanized, right? So we rode in those. There was about 15 to 20 Marines in a tracked vehicle with the turrets open, right? And then machine guns pointed out, and like we're just rolling through, like crossing the line of departure, like at ungodly hour. We didn't like the sense of time, and kind of it just happened so quick. I was like, that's it. We're breaching. We're going across. And I distinctly remember, like, before that, like, General Mattis. I remember General Mattis talking on a tank, giving a speech to all the Marines that were just going to do something that we're so involved with. And you know, he had the theatrics, right? He had the, hey, and these are you're going to be your angels, and then these attack helicopters had flew across all of us, and we're like, yeah, we're ready to go, man. And then he had this like Blue Diamond letter that Blue Diamond's obviously 1st Marine Division. They call it Blue Diamond, and we had this letter, and it, you know, we all kept it on us, and you know, just listed out everything, your purpose, why you're here, what you're doing, why you're serving, you know. And that just kind of reinforced the message of getting us mentally focused on what was about to happen. And we're in the right mindset. I mean, a lot of the, you know, whatever's going on in the world, that didn't matter. It was so the left and right of you, that's who's to help you out. And it was just crazy because as I look back on it, man, that was so long ago.
20 years, right?
Flashback, yeah, man.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
What so how long was that first deployment? Typical 6 months.
About 6 months, yeah.
You know, so like you said, you were part of the initial push into Iraq, right? You know, don't need to go in depth into any one certain thing, but you know, what are some like wave caps that you remember from that first deployment?
Yeah, I mean, it was quick. I mean, kicking down doors, going on rooftops, you know, just walking down the road, you know, Marines on the perimeter, you know, on the outside, and there's tracked vehicles where, you know, we dismount and we walk, you know, in the cities. And that was just, you know, and then seeing the population. I think that's really when it hit me, when I saw the local population. Like, we didn't see people that looked like us and talk our language and those things. And you didn't know who's the bad guy. Like, there's bad guys out there.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, man, I mean, the different operations, like, you name it. Like, we stormed, like, a Ba'ath Party headquarters. Huge complex, military complex. And we're just going up and down stairs in the buildings, and you know, we had certain missions that we did. I don't know if we can talk about this, but I mean, I'm sure it's unclassified now, but you know, just different areas. I mean, we were on the move. Like, it was like one day camp out. I remember sleeping next to the artillery going off, and just like, I remember it raining. Like, I could show you pictures. Like, we're all just on the move. We're in MOP level 4, gas mask, you know, you name it. Like, it was hot out there, you know.
Was that first deployment, and we'll get to further deployments, but
yeah,
that initial push in Iraq, right? That was probably the only normal part of the war on terror, right? Because we're still, at that point, we were fighting someone in a uniform, right? We were fighting the Iraqi army, right? Shortly after that, it changed, right, to the insurgency. And
yeah,
you know, was there a stark difference, right? Where IED is necessarily a thing at that point?
No, I don't think so.
That's all kind of later on.
I think that was more later, at the later stage.
So I guess probably would have been a better question to ask later on. But were there stark differences from like that first deployment rather than, you know, the future ones as far as the right? Because we knew who our enemy was essentially, right? And
yeah,
that
I mean,
first initial push.
You understand that? I mean, our enemy at the time was Iraqis, but you know, or the Saddam supported Iraqis, right? So they really didn't fight us. I mean, we still not as ferocious as, later,
Right.
The later wars and stuff, but there was still contact. We still got contact, and we still returned fire when we needed to. But I think there were more the insurgents and stuff like are more tactically proficient in the later stages of our other conflicts that we are involved with. For sure, there was. I mean, and then there was folks that were surrendering and stuff that we would take as EPWs and those things.
Much more of like a conventional.
It was more conventional war. Right? Yeah, I mean, we would surge so quick.
Right.
I mean, I think at the time, I remember listening to someone had a radio, and we heard the president make the announcement. At the time, it was President Bush. We heard the president making the announcement on the radio. And we're already in country. We're like halfway through.
Oh wow!
And he's just making the announcement
that we were invading.
Yeah, and that's for
right, obviously, yeah,
shock and awe. Yeah.
So
we're not going to announce that. Like,
right.
We don't.
Hey, we're coming.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
so you do your 6 months there. I'm sure you gain a lot of experience.
Eye-opening experiences, yeah, for sure.
Professionally and personally, and tactically.
Tactically. Yeah.
But coming home from that first deployment, take me through that. What was, because, right, I mean, you could probably say that you're a totally different person, right, after that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I remember, I think we're in Camp Horno and Camp Pendleton, and there's a staging area, the grinder is what they call it, but everybody's packs were staged and stuff, and all the family members. I just remember walking across this one bridge to get there, and then like all the families were taking photos and pictures, and it was kind of sad, man, because it's like everybody's kissing their families, kissing their wives, and I'm just going to my pack, man. I got to get my pack, and then I'm going to go to my bedroom. I'm going to go to my rack, and then figure out leave and trying to get home and see family and stuff. So I didn't get the warm welcome, right? All these other family members that were, all these folks that they're married and stuff, had gotten all the pictures, bright lights, and happy welcome back, and we're all trying to adjust. But I always remembered that as a leader, like, I will never make a sailor feel that way. Like, they just did something so great that normal people, probably maybe some people, the all volunteer force, maybe some people didn't want to do. And you come home and like nobody's there. You're like, you're just trying to figure it out, man. So
did you go back to the hospital you're at 29 Palms? Or?
Yeah, I went back to 29 Palms. I still had some time there. Reset, refocus,
Was that an easy transition going from Iraq back to, sick call clinic or wherever it happened to go?
You have some, it was different, but like you're trying to reassimilate back into, the CO there was, hey, turn off, I need you to go from warrior to gentleman mode. Cause you're, you're a warrior on the battlefield, and you come back and you're in garrison, and now you're trying to, you gotta be nice. You're interacting with folks that maybe haven't been exposed to certain things, and
dependents.
Yeah.
Right. Civilians.
Yeah. So people are going to look at you kind of crazy, right? If you can't be yelling at people, and you can't, have outbursts and stuff like that. So right. Yeah, it was an adjustment period. Yeah, for sure.
So where'd you go next after your time at 29 Palms?
After 29 Palms, went to Okinawa, Japan. I got orders to Naval Hospital, Okinawa, Japan. Worked at the ED, emergency department, and then they farmed me out all over, man. I worked at Camp Kinzer Clinic. I worked at White Beach Clinic. And then I ended up, the family practice clinic at Camp Lester again. And then after that, I got out of the Navy.
Oh, really? What led you to that? Well, first of all, what year are we at now?
Ooh. Man, was it? Where's that? 05, 06, 07, kind of just in that area time frame.
Okay.
05 to 07, yeah.
What led you to that decision to get out?
I just felt like I'd missed out on a lot, like just being away from home. I was overseas. It's tough to get flights back home,
Right.
see family and those things, and I felt like I need to get back and really just kind of focus on. It was like, hey, I did start school and stuff in Okinawa, but I felt like I really need to ramp down and go to school.
Okay. So did you return back home to
went
New
back
York?
home to Penfield. Live with mom and dad. And I think my older brother he was still there, and my younger brother, yeah. You don't realize how much you've changed till you go back home.
Right.
And there's quite an adjustment period where you're trying to like, even going to school, man, like you're like, you've gone through all these experiences, and then you go to school and you're like, I was like super early, like 15 minutes early, surprisingly, right? And the lights aren't even on. The professor comes in, and it's like, oh, you're here early. I'm like, yeah, on time, I'm ready to,
Right.
ready to go.
Relate.
Yeah. And sitting around a bunch of 18-year-olds that are oblivious to everything,
Right.
But like you're kind of like that old head. They call him the old head. Like, he's old.
Which is crazy because
He's
you're like
ancient.
your young 20s, right? At that point, or
Yeah, but you'd feel like you'd aged like maybe
Right.
10 years going through
Right.
everything.
it's almost like dog years.
Yeah.
Dog age. Or,
Like
dog
you just
years.
grow up so quick.
Right.
Like you're focused, you're more determined on future goals and those things. So yeah, it does change. It's a wake up. Definitely was a wake up. And then I still maintained service, right? I was in the Navy Reserves for about 8 months.
Okay.
Didn't enjoy it too much, and I felt like I needed to get back to active.
So was that transition hard? Going back from the reserves, was it pretty much you missed it kind of thing?
Yeah, it's not the same. Like
Right.
if anybody tells you that the Navy Reserves is the same as active duty Navy, it's totally different.
I'm sure it probably wasn't very hard when you said, "Hey, I want to go active again," right? Because now we're kind of getting close to the surge, so
Yeah.
they're probably like, "Yeah, come on," right?
Yeah. I had a good re-entry code on my DD-214 and re-enlistment code, honorable discharge. Like highly preferred for retention and re-enlistment. So I walked in the recruiter's office and I said, "Hey, I'd like to get back in."
So, how does that work exactly? Is it just hey, I want to go active? You sign some papers and then you get like hard copy orders as if you were to PCS anyways, or what's that transition back like?
It might change now. I'm sure there's a RC to AC kind of conversion, but when I went through, and I could speak on my experiences, it was going through everything from scratch.
Oh,
Like, good
wow.
thing I had maintained like all my MEPS physicals and everything.
So you had to re-go through MEPS and all that?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
This time I went through Syracuse. I went through Syracuse MEPS instead of Buffalo. But it was the same process, right? You stay at a hotel the night prior. You go to your MEPS physical. They poke and prod, and go through the whole process again. And then I went back to Great Lakes. So I went back to Great Lakes because you have to go through what's called NAVVET OSVET training. So Navy veteran, other service veteran training.
It's like the
Reassimilate back into. So very TPU like, right? Transient personnel.
And that's the same one you said, like if like a Marine joins the Navy, they don't
absolutely.
put them through boot camp again.
Right,
It's just
right.
like, here's how you wear our uniform kind of thing.
Yeah, it's to assimilate you back into the Navy.
Interesting.
I'd only gotten
Even though
out
you're
for-
out like less than a year?
Yes.
Wow. Very interesting.
But there's purpose behind that, right? Because they're not only are you affecting the Navy's end strength, but they're also making sure that your pays are started and all your entitlements and those things. So there's a logistical part of it too, to make sure that you're good
Right.
before you hit your next duty station again.
And then at that point, you just get your orders to wherever you're going right from that.
Yeah. So you
that
get
school in Great Lakes.
direct orders from Navet Osvet course is what they call it. Yeah. I was there for a couple weeks.
And so where'd you go from there? Where was your first duty station back?
First Marine Logistics Group.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we're
Camp Pendleton, California.
okay, so
Yeah.
West Coast. All right. And what was that like? Boom, back in the Navy and right back with the Marines.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like that's where I needed to be.
That's what you wanted.
Yeah,
anyways,
that's what I
right?
wanted. Yeah.
And did
Like there was a sense of, hey, I need to be doing something. Like I need to get back to. I felt like I wasn't finished when I got out. Like I'd left for other reasons,
right?
but I felt like I still had a career ahead of me. Like,
Did you feel any kind of difference in mentality or thought process, like in the military? Like, did it feel different as far as how things operated? You know what I'm saying? I'm not really sure if I'm asking that question the best way, but
yeah, the OIF was still going on. There were still multiple deployments. There was still a deployment rotation. So there was a heightened sense of responsibility and patriotism for sure.
There's more of a when getting deployed, not
like,
if.
Yeah. You're going to go.
Right.
Like just when.
And so how long after did you? I'm assuming you deployed out of there as well.
Yeah, I didn't do a Iraq deployment out of there though. I did a 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit deployment. Westpac, they call it Westpac.
Okay, so that was a MU as we call it,
MU,
right?
yeah.
So you were a Marine detachment attached to a ship, right?
Yes.
Okay.
USS Cleveland. Shout out Cleveland. It's decom now, but LPD 7.
And what was that experience like? Because was that your first interaction with a ship?
Yes.
In the Navy, right?
Yes.
So
like, oh man, you felt like a sailor, man. Like you felt like a sailor.
and again,
like-
to just to emphasize for some people who may not know what that is. Well, actually, you're probably better to explain it. Explain what the purpose of a MU is.
Yeah, so purpose of MU is to support amphibious operations for Marines, essentially, in the big picture, big scheme of things. Ship-to-shore movement logistically for Marines, and projection of power from ship to shore. For sure.
It's kind of like on standby out there, right?
Yeah, you're on it's Little Caesars, man. You're hot and ready.
Right.
Like ready to whatever operations that need to happen were going to happen, yeah.
Okay. Any good stories from your first deployment on the old Deep Blue Sea?
I mean, you're floating, you're underway, like just spending time with each other. I'm really, like I hear horror stories about people not having good experiences as a shipwrighter with the Navy as Marines, right? But even a corpsman attached with Marines serving on a Navy vessel, sometimes folks don't have good experiences too, because they, like if you're not wearing like Navy uniform, even though your name tape says U.S. Navy,
right,
you're still like, hey, dog,
you're not one of us. Yeah.
But surprisingly, our ship, which is one of the small, it was an all-male ship. We had a great experience, man. We all hung out with each other. Didn't matter if you're a sailor or Marine. It was tight. That ship was tight.
I'm sure the mentality was just very different back then in the military. It was one team, one fight, right? We're in the middle of a huge battle. So
crazy thing is, I think one of the boilers went down on the ship, and this is just to kind of tell you about like teamwork, right? The Marine Corps, we didn't have fresh water. So the Marine Corps has this system called the TWIP system. And basically it's this big bladder. It turns, not so great water into potable water. And so that went down. We used, seawater, filled the bladder with it. It went through the TWIP system, filtered it, fed it back down. We had the best drinking water.
No, it's cool.
And that lasted for, a couple weeks until they got the boilers back up again and running. But there was like ingenuity and teamwork. They posted a watch. Those systems were running constantly throughout the day.
Right.
And Navy Marine Corps team, they talk about it, and I saw it with my own eyes of how different systems, even though we're on different branches of service, could come together and work through a problem, because it affected the whole ship. It wasn't just, this is a Navy problem, this is a Marine. It was the ship. It was everybody's problem.
And when you're out in the middle of the ocean, you're all you got.
Yeah. You need to figure it out.
Yep.
And we figured it out, man. I think from that experience, I think the ship got more integrated as far as like operations and those things, and we truly support each other. Whether simple stuff like haircuts, like there's Marine barbers, there was Navy barbers, but it was barbers. It didn't matter where you went. It was like, hey, you're part of the ship. Let's go.
What was your day-to-day like on a MEU as a corpsman? Is it just kind of more of like do you work in the ship's medical?
Ship's medical, yeah.
Just kind of sick call.
Very small ship's medical. We're integrated, so we'd see the sick call in the morning time.
So you'd see ship's company as well, or just Marines?
We'd see everybody.
Okay.
There's two physicians. You had a ship doc, and then you had the Marine doc. Ours was augmented. I think he was an ER physician at the time.
Okay.
And then we had a nurse and a PA. But yeah, I mean, full on medical, man. Like, and if we weren't actively seeing patients, we were training. We'd come up with a topic, and we'd train to it. And then, the physician would train us, or the nurses, the PA. Hey, this is what you need to look for. Like, we just go through different, soap notes and, brushing up on our medical skills as far as like documentation and, signs and symptoms of certain things. So it was cool. And then on top of that, we obviously would hit different ports and stuff and have fun, eat the local food and stuff like that.
6-month deployment as well. A little bit longer maybe with the MEU.
Yeah, I think so. It's a little bit longer, maybe 7, 8. I don't know.
The ship's level.
If you count workups and
extending.
Yeah, if you count workups and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Assume was out of San Diego, that ship.
San Diego. Yeah.
So you came back.
Pier 6.
That's why I remember that.
So like it's crazy, right? Because I want to say I have a photographic memory. I just remember stuff that typical people don't remember. Sometimes it's bad because like I want to forget about stuff and I can't. So yeah.
All right, so you come back from the MEU, right? Pretty diverse, career so far, right? You boots on ground, served out on the high seas.
Yep.
Did your time in the hospital there at 29 Palms. So where did your career take you next after that deployment, or that tour rather?
Yeah, MLG. It's MLG, and then I went to Navy Region Southwest. It was Reserve Component Command. It was in the middle of downtown San Diego. That's when I really kind of got to know how the reserves work.
Being on the other side of it.
Yeah, I was at I think I want to say it was Echelon 3 Command. And then it was like seeing Navy Region, Navy Reserve Forces, CNRF. That was our boss. But I was in charge of N9. I just made chief. And learning how to work with FTS personnel, staff members. I learned a lot. I mean, a lot of respect for what they do. It's a different beast, trying to get reservists ready so they can deploy and be, deployable. Right. So you see a lot of things, and we were processing like, medical readiness, and placing people on like disqualification if they weren't deployable and those things. But this is the whole Navy region. So it was like 20 to 30 reserve centers that we're in charge of. So we would go out, they would send us out and we'd go inspect their medical programs, make sure they're doing the right thing.
And, I mean, at that time, reservists were getting recalled a lot, right? Because now we're kind of into
Yeah, I mean,
the
we were still asking for CENTCOM clearance for medical clearance. For people that had ailments and stuff, we would request for them to, hey, can you waive this to go on deployment and those things. So yeah, there were still deployment. There's a lot of deployments going on.
And what year are we in?
Ooh, 8, 9. It was
Okay.
like 8, 9, 10.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
around that.
So, so is that just mainly just a shore duty kind of a?
Yeah, just regular shore duty type deal. I didn't want to go to the hospital. MTF, large MTF, I already did that. So I was like, well, I'll do something else. So that came up, San Diego, who doesn't want to live in, who doesn't want to have a duty station in San Diego?
Right.
I didn't know I was going to spend my whole career in California.
So at this point, you already got out, you came back in, right? You put on E7, made chief. Did you know it's kind of, this is it now? Gonna do 20.
Yeah, I think I was 11, 12 years in already at that time. Just a sense of pride and patriotism as, going through season. I went through the last iteration of what was called induction. So
this is pre-chief season?
This is pre like phase 1, phase 2, CPO 365.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a different period. But nonetheless, I mean, learned a lot, still talk to folks that I went through season with. Yeah, and I actually, talking about that duty station, I actually terminated early. This kind of goes into future duty stations after that, but I terminated short early there. My replacement was already there, and I was excess. I had a staff of like 4 or 5 folks. I talked to the CMC and was like, I need to get back to doing what I do. Carrie Wenzel, shout out Carrie Wenzel, retired. She's retired out in Arizona. Great, just awesome. Put me through season and just learned so much from her. Abe Blanco, PSC, retired now. He's out in San Diego. Learned so much from him. Those kind of like my go-to guys. And Johnny Valencia is one of my mentors there too. Retired YNCS. Learned a lot from all of them. And I just felt like it was my obligation to get back to just young chief trying to do the right thing. Terminated shore. Obviously they slam you with orders.
Right.
You terminate shore duty. So yeah, they definitely slammed me with orders. 29 Palms, buddy. I'm like, what? Are you serious? That was like 29 Palms or Camp Lejeune. I was like, 29 Palms, write it.
Kept you in California, like you said.
Kept me in California. It wasn't, I was away from, San Diego, Camp Pendleton area, right? Hollywood. But I knew that there was great sailors that needed great leadership in 29 Palms too. Just because you're in the middle of nowhere doesn't mean that there's not great sailors out there.
Right.
And I felt like I need to get out there and do what a chief does, man. Because I remember that kind of like as a young sailor, like, man, if I ever get that opportunity to go with the infantry unit and be the chief, I'm gonna do that. And I got the chance, and 1-7, right? Prepare to march was the slogan. First of the 7th. Magnificent 7th was their regiment. That's what they called it. Colonel Yost was our CO. Sergeant Major Getty was our sergeant major. And got there. They'd already had a chief, Noel Gravina. He's retired now too. So you had 2 chiefs going on deployment. We were did split operations and stuff like that. But
how much different was like your personal preparation for that, right? So being a junior 3rd or 2nd class, right? You're kind of just responsible for just your job, if you will, right? Like you know what you have to do, and that's kind of all
Right.
that your circle, that your circle of what you're worried about is. But as chief, right? Obviously there's a greater sense of responsibility there, right? You're the leader, and you're responsible for so much more, right? Like what was that preparation like?
Ooh, I don't
Especially
think
about to deploy to a war zone.
it's a lot, man. Like it's a lot of responsibility, and it's a lot of preparation that goes into getting mentally focused and physically focused on the deployment. Because as soon as you got there, I was on deployment. Like
Right.
a month after I checked in, I was like, okay, this is gonna be tough. All right,
And the
strap up. Like
And-
your family's you just PCS'd here. You tell your family you're gonna go on deployment for 6 months and you won't see them again for a while.
and what we were walking into at that time frame, right, was very different, kind of like what we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
It's no longer conventional, right? And it was so televised, right? I mean,
Yeah, it was
Did-
open. BBC
did
was
that
covering
play
it.
into any kind of that play any factor in your preparation or your personal psyche or anything?
No, I don't think so. I think at that time we were all conditioned for it. We just knew it was a matter of time before deployment. My focus was number one, like knowing the sailors,
Right.
knowing the leadership that you have, and knowing what your responsibilities are, and then maintaining those relationships with the senior enlisted, and the chiefs as well. That was, those are the main things, the highlights. And as much as people clown on 29 Palms, I think the Chiefs mess out in 29 Palms is super close to each other because there isn't really much around us. So
Right.
it was more family oriented. Like, these kids, that's, I know your dad,
Gotcha.
like it was close. We all knew each other because we all most of us lived on base. When you live in a different area, like Camp Pendleton, San Diego, and those things, like when the day's over, people beat feet.
Right. Everyone's a lot spread out.
Hey, Monday Night Football, we're at the staff NCO club watching it together.
That's cool.
But also that not just getting to know each other, but learning about each other. What's your story? What's your story? Where'd you come from? Hey, how did you do this? What was your approach to this? And that's when you'd really get some insight on, how things ran and, what you need to get to, how it's going to help you and benefit your sailors.
So that deployment out of there, was it Iraq again or Afghanistan?
Afghanistan. It's the tail end of Afghanistan. We're the last Blue Diamond footprint in Afghanistan. So we were shutting down Camp Leatherneck. That was our
Okay.
essential mission.
So what was that like? I mean, that's probably a little bit different of a mission
Yeah,
than everyone was used to.
it was an adjustment. There was still stuff outside the wire that were different operations that were happening, but we're also trying to safely retrograde all of our equipment, supplies, and those things back home. So you understand, like we had gone through this is years of just units coming through, staging in Afghanistan, Camp Leatherneck, and then going out to their FOB or wherever they're going to be at. And we're trying to shut everything down. So very austere. Like when I first got there was still some Wi-Fi and the niceties, right? 50K. We were in a 50K building and went to work. My thing was just making sure that those guys were taken care of, and really just getting them their warfare qualification. A lot of them were brand new, gone through the pipeline, and they wanted to get their warfare qualification while they were doing operations, and so they were still committed to qualification PQS. They were proud. They're proud to be FMF corpsmen. That's really where the bread and butter's at, man.
Right.
That is the most sexiest job you can do. Infantry corpsman.
Right.
It's like, oh, barrel-chested freedom fighter. Yeah, that's what I think about.
So how long was that deployment? Another six
Yeah,
months?
it's like 6 to 8 as well. Yeah.
So what was that like leaving? I mean, like, did you guys like close the gates when you left? Were you literally like the last ones there, or like what was?
No, I think there was still like 1 or 2 units from the East Coast that were there, and then they were just retrograding. Yeah.
Did you have a lot of interaction with the Afghan army that we were kind of standing up there? Was there much presence on Leatherneck training?
There
stuff
were
like
some.
that?
There were some, but not a whole lot. Not a whole lot, man. Like a lot of it was just multinational NATO forces that were, Georgians were there.
Okay.
And then I think we had New Zealand, some other countries that were there as well. It was just cool seeing the UK. It was just cool interacting with different troops and kind of like, they're going through the same thing that we're going through. It's just they're in a different country, and it was cool. Got to interact with them, talk to them, different experiences and stuff.
Any good stories? Or is the whole thing a good story?
The good story is that most of us we had one KIA, Sergeant Spitzer, rest in peace. But other than that, I mean, the deployment went pretty good. Most of my guys got warfare qualified and those things, and you really, I think being on deployment really tests how you are as a chief. It was my first big one as a chief, and we'd gone through. It was just getting to know all of your sailors, and then kind of making sure that they got home safe. Yeah.
Would you say that deployment is like a basis of where a lot of your leadership tendencies came from?
Absolutely, no doubt. I had a young lieutenant out of USIS school, GMO. He was doing his general medical officer tour. He'd already gotten accepted to ENT residency. Lieutenant Frazier, he's probably Lieutenant Commander Frazier now. Learned a lot about him. Learned a lot about me as a leader, how to approach things. Being calm when things aren't always calm. Young lieutenant, you gotta help them out, advise. That's what we do as chiefs. You advise. You're not leading them. They're the leader. You advise as much as you want to say that you're a leader. They're naval officers.
Right.
Leadership is there. It's just you gotta get out of them. So that's why a lot of us, we advise constantly. But it's good because they, and I think it's based on the individual whether or not they want to listen,
Right.
and take that advice and counsel from the chief. But yeah, I still talk to Lieutenant Commander Frazier today. He's helped me out in a couple things, so and I've helped him out. We helped each other out. It was a team effort.
What's one of the things that fascinates me throughout this conversation is how many names you remember.
Yeah,
and it's cool because as you go through your career, you have those people that impact you. And I'm just kind of, as you talk, I'm kind of thinking of my list of names. Not as long as yours yet, but it's true. Like some people just stick out in your mind for whatever reason it may be. But it just kind of has me thinking about those people that I've come across in my career. I hope I can recall their names in 10 plus years when I'm at the point of retirement. So you finish up that deployment. Been a chief for a few years. What's kind of your thought process? Are you still that hungry operational sailor, or are you like, all right, it's time to be with the family, go do some office work?
Yeah, I was like, okay. I know I didn't want to go to an MTF. And people will say, hey, you should have went to an MTF. Get the, large summary group, breakout, you need to go to MTF. You're going to learn evals and administration. I'm like, I already know that. I mean, I get it. Like Navy medicine. So I decided to do something different. And that's when I chose to go to recruiting. So after 29 Palms, 1-7, working at Navy personnel office, great group of folks. I moved into, I was like, San Francisco, dude. BH, right?
What was BH in San Francisco?
It was like, dude, it was like 4,200.
Jesus.
But let me tell you how much rent was, man. Rent was like 2-bedroom apartment, Mountain View, California. I paid $2,800 a month.
For an apartment.
That's more than my mortgage I pay for today.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, right? They give you all those pays and like Inconas Cola and all this. Dude, you're gonna need it, man, because this is expensive out there. Let me tell you, it's California. Like Silicon Valley, it's not cheap. So,
what was your experience like recruiting? Or were you an officer recruiter?
Yeah,
because at a chief. Yeah. Okay.
I was a medical officer recruiter
Okay.
out in San Francisco, based out of Mountain View. But my schools were Stanford, all these big schools. We'd gone across the whole California region, Northern California, Turin University, University of Pacific for school of dentistry, Cal Berkeley. We'd go all the way out to Merced, and we did UC Davis. That was different,
As an officer recruiter, because I feel like on like the enlisted side, I mean, most people walk in the recruiter's office because they want to join, but I feel like there's a bit of selling there that the recruiters have to do. As an officer recruiter, did you feel more so that these people knew that it was a little bit easier? Like they knew they were coming to the military to pay for their school or to be, a nurse. Like was it more so? Was it a little bit easier? Or did you still feel like you had to do kind of selling?
Inform. I wouldn't say sell because the program kind of sells itself. Yeah. I would say the general public doesn't know that these opportunities are available. And it's up to you as a recruiter to educate them on these different scholarships opportunities for folks to join, serve, but also have the Navy pay for their education and for them to walk away with retirement and benefits and those things. And some folks, it's crazy because some of them were like fully accomplished physicians in their own right. And they just wanted to serve. And that was kind of like what touched me, man. Because it's just like they've done everything in their career. And they're like, I just want to serve. I won't say the doctor's name, but he was out in Fresno. And I think he was an orthopedic surgeon. And I'd gone to his mansion. We're going to sign documents. This guy had a gate to go through, and we're delivering the oath, right? We're doing the commissioning oath, and I brought my young Lieutenant J. No, he was an ensign. I won't say his name. Micah Avignon, where you at? He's out in Italy now. I think Sicily. Again, he was Italian. Good dude. Awesome guy. It's just crazy. Like I was explaining to him, like, "Hey, this is what you're gonna pay," and he's like, "I don't care about that."
That's cool.
It's like the guy was rich.
Just wanted to do something.
He just wanted to do something different.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's kind of like that's super cool, man.
He did active. It wasn't like
he did reserve because he was a little bit older.
Okay.
Yeah, but this guy, his entry level grade coming in was, I think it was lieutenant commander, maybe. Just based off of his experience. So.
That's cool. Did you enjoy recruiting, right? Because that's one of the jobs I feel like people either love it or hate it. And more so I hear people hate it. But I feel like you have a pretty similar mentality to me, is like gratitude towards the Navy and being able to kind of share that as like a recruiter, to share that to civilians and let them know all the good opportunities, stuff like that. Like, um, did you enjoy your time recruiting? It giving you the ability to do that as your job, right? I mean, we could always express how our love for the Navy.
I wouldn't say the job. The job is like any other job, man. But I would say it was the people, right? Certain guys that stick out to me. Commander Joel Rodriguez. He was a Chang before. Then he went HR and he was the CEO there. And then Commander Free, she was also a Chang. She was prior corpsman. She was a prior corpsman, then converted. And this is the one that I was telling you about. She was a SWO. Corpsman, got out, commissioned, went that route, and then went into HR. Yeah.
Was this the command where you met my Master Chief?
Yes. Yeah. So that was one of the names I was going to talk to you about. Tomas Garcia, Cobb, a.k.a. Cobb. Cobb, if you're listening, we need you on the show. Yeah, it was the leaders, man. So like him, David Peterson, Command Master Chief David Peterson, Cobb, Tomas Garcia, our CR, Chief Recruiter, Jimmy Whitney, Senior Chief Rodney. Yeah, I mean, it was tight. Margaret Gabriel, Senior Chief, she's out in Camp Pendleton now. I think she's in Balboa. But all those people, it was great people around us, man. It didn't matter what we're doing. Like, we're just gonna have fun. So yeah, I mean, I definitely attribute great leadership to great outcomes.
And again, that just goes to show you how small the Navy is. As we were talking, we come to find out Cobb, right? Yeah. He was,
Don't call him CMC, call him Cobb.
He was he was the department chief of submarine school when I was going through it, and handed me my graduation certificate when I graduated from BESS. And he actually lived right around the corner from me in housing. Just for you to meet him on the other side of the country, because I was in Connecticut, right? And you met him in California, and then we get stationed together, and we know similar. That's the crazy thing about the Navy.
The thing is, the crazy thing is, you ever heard this saying, is like, you stay in the Navy long enough, you're going to run into the same people.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's true. Yeah, that's true. So after that tour, you made senior there, or?
No, I didn't make senior. I was still a chief.
Okay.
Been a chief for about 6-7 years at the time. Yeah.
And then where did you didn't, was there somewhere else in between, or did you come here after that?
No, came here. I'd gotten passed over quite a few times, and I said, hey, if this is it, I might as well go to a place where I'm going to retire. And I always wanted to go to Tennessee, and it never came to fruition. Like, placement reached out to me while I was in 29 Palms. I tried to apply there, didn't get selected. I'm like, okay, well, I'll go do something different. And again, tried to go to Tennessee, same thing. They said no, not available, but I can get you to Texas. That's open. I was like, I just came off a CNO priority tour. We'll get you to Texas. I was like, okay, send me to Texas. So came to Texas, my first duty station, like close to the East Coast, kind of in the middle states, but been loving every minute of it, man.
Did you, when they said, I have Texas Corpsman A school, did that kind of hit you anywhere? Like, oh, I'm going to go, give back to the Corps of Navy Medicine,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I'd spoke to a couple friends that had served here, a.k.a. Chris Cruz. Where you at? Chris Cruz, Darren Blunt, just folks that have served here, and Carlos Elgin. We've we've served together, and they had nothing but great things to say about this command. So I was like, oh yeah, for sure. And then on top of that, just kind of seeing the future. Corpsman, like it starts here. Like my nephew went through like corps school like a couple months back. It was just a cool seeing that opportunity in front of them, and just seeing it from the beginning stages, that real infancy stages of things in your whole career. It's neat.
So what's next for you, right? You're kind of, how far out are you now from?
So I retire in September.
Right. So you're, a couple months, 6 months, 7 months. What's,
Yeah, man.
I mean, I know we talk back and forth, but, for the sake of conversation, I know you said you want to try to get back to Tennessee, right?
Yep. We're going to Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Nashville area. It's where all the extended family's at, and like to move my mom, dad, and my brothers out from New York, get them out from the snow, move them down to Tennessee, be close to the family.
And do you know what you want to be when you grow up? When you get out? Still trying to figure that part out.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to pigeonhole myself into doing just one thing. I love, like, whatever I set my mind to, I'll eventually be successful at it, right? I think that's with everybody. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And I think, hey, I'd like to keep the doors open. I don't just want to pigeonhole myself into doing one thing. Something with operations, administration, maybe.
I mean, you got out and came back one time before.
Yeah.
Or would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely. No, what are you talking about? Realistic?
Yeah.
Y'all gonna fix that retention bonus. You gotta pay me.
But nah,
We don't get paid enough.
Yeah,
I think that's
for sure. We get paid in experience, not money.
Yeah, but it's like you don't do this to make money.
Right.
You do it because you genuinely care.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's the people, like you said.
It's the people.
Yeah. I mean, that could be
You're
a whole
not
nother
ever gonna find it.
podcast.
You're not ever gonna find that again.
You're not.
As much as you think that the civilian life is gonna be better, like there's some parts where I'm gonna truly miss about the Navy, like for sure. But it's you're learning how to be a civilian again. You've been institutionalized.
Right.
You've been doing this for 21 plus years. Like now you're telling me I can't do this.
Yeah. It's just the bonds and the, like, being service members, like you already know who that person is, right? Like normally when like you meet someone out in town, like when you're civilian, you may, maybe meet once or twice out in town, and then I don't like that person. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like all that's kind of cut out. You know what I mean? You just kind of, and my neighbor Tony here, he lives a few doors down. He's a drill instructor at Air Force boot camp right down the road here, and he always tells us, he's married, has a young baby as well, and we always hang out all the time as a family. And he said he always uses our story to his recruits, or whatever they call them, and I guess recruits in Air Force boot camp, whatever it is.
I don't know what they call it.
Neither do I. But he, like, sometimes he'll get questions about how do you how you deal with being away from family, stuff like that. And me and him met at the community pool here this past summer, and just instantly hit it off. Like we babysit their kids, they'll babysit our kids, so we can do like date nights, like and we've known each other less than I mean, when we probably close to a year now, but a few months after we started to do that stuff, because
Right.
it's just, I would never do that. You know what I mean? Like just stuff like that.
I think
is
there's
very unique.
There's a mutual respect and bond that is unspoken that military service members have with
Right.
one another, and a level of trust,
For
right?
sure.
And an understanding. I think those are the things that I will truly miss. Like, for anyone that's served or is continuing to serve, that's the pinnacle why you have these bonds with the people that you work with.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we get to do so many unique things and play with $1 million toys and go out to sea on warships, and
Yeah.
you know that's all cool, and watch missiles be shot. But it's really those relationships that are the best thing about it.
Yeah, you can
Hands
do the
down.
worst. You can cleaning toilets, and you're hey, that dude's cracking jokes.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Yep. For sure. Well, Senior, I mean, we're almost
Where are we at? An hour, 2 hours in?
almost 2.5 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, hour and a half.
Okay.
That far. Yeah, hour
Oh,
and a
man.
half.
I mean, I can go on all day, man.
But
we got stuff to do.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate your leadership. Appreciate your friendship.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you're definitely one of those names on my list that you know I'll be repeating here, and when it comes time for me to get out. And you know, again, I appreciate your time on your weekend. You know, away from your family to come do this with me.
No, certainly appreciate it, man.
And
Thanks for having me on.
absolutely. All right, guys. Until the next episode. We'll see you then.